Hello and welcome back. Today we're moving into a very important step in the web development process: testing and reviewing our portfolio website. This is step number 4 in our journey, and it's all about making sure everything works the way it should before we move on to the final touches and launch. Testing is such a big deal that companies often hire people just to do this job, finding bugs and making sure everything runs smoothly. Testing might sound a bit tricky. After all, there are people whose whole job is just testing, right? But don't worry. I'm here to walk you through it, and by the end of this day, you'll be confident in testing your site yourself. Plus, our project isn't too complicated, so it's actually pretty easy to test on your own. So why do we need to test our website? Imagine launching your site only to discover that some parts don't work right, or worse, that they don't work at all. Testing helps us catch these problems before our users do. It's all about making sure the website looks great and also works well. Now let's jump into testing our portfolio website. We'll start by opening the website in Chrome and using the developer tools, which you already know. Today we will use them to do a practical test and find any issues that need fixing. Before we dive into the specific issues, I've got a task for you. Take a little time to explore the website and see if you can spot any issues on your own. This is a great way to get better at noticing things that might need attention. Alright, let me first show you how to do the test. Start by opening your website in Chrome. Right-click anywhere on the page and select Inspect to open Developer Tools. Click the Device toolbar icon to see how your website looks on different devices. You can choose between different screen sizes and rotate the screen to see how it looks in landscape mode. Try also to check if everything is aligned correctly and any element overlaps or appears out of place. Check all the elements, even the smallest ones. Testing your website on different screen sizes is important because it helps you make sure your design works well on all devices, whether someone's viewing it on their phone, tablet, or desktop. So the first thing you need to do is check the website on different devices. After that, go through your website and click on every link. Does each link take you where it's supposed to? If you click a navigation link, does it scroll smoothly to the right section? This is key because broken links can be really frustrating for users. Finally, let's look at the contact form. Go ahead and fill it out. Enter your name, email, and message. Try submitting it. What happens? If you try submitting the form without filling in all the required fields, does it give you an error message? This is important because a working contact form is essential for letting visitors reach you. As you go through your site, take your time to really look at each element. Make notes of anything that needs to be fixed. Imagine you're one of your visitors. And remember, there may be some smaller issues that we won't cover today, but they're still good to note for future improvements. Pause the video and try to spot as many issues as possible. Okay, let's go through the issues together now. I'll show you each one in Chrome, so you can see exactly what needs fixing. Let's start with the logo in the header. Can you see how it's not centered vertically? We'll open the developer tools, inspect the logo element, and adjust the CSS to center it properly. This issue is important because the header is the first thing users see, and a well-aligned header makes a great first impression. As you can see, we have some empty space below the logo. We need to fix it. As we scroll through the website, pay attention to the project cards. They overlap with the header when scrolling. I mentioned it in one of the JavaScript lessons. I told you that we will fix that later, and now is the time for it. In the next videos, we'll inspect the project cards in Developer Tools and figure out why they're overlapping. It might be a simple fix, but we need to check it. Now let's move to the contact form. Try clicking on the text field and resizing it by dragging the corner. You'll notice that the field can become too large or too small, messing up the layout. It allows the user to break the form's look, right? We'll inspect this element and add CSS to prevent it from being resized. Finally, you'll see a Contact Me link in the Hero section. While it works fine as a link, it would be more effective as a button. We'll inspect this element and change it from a link to a button. As we speak about buttons, there's one more small issue to fix. The Submit input element in both contact forms doesn't have a cursor property set to the pointer. It's a small fix, but it's also good to improve it. And that's the list with the biggest issues. By the end of this testing session, you should have a good understanding of the areas that need attention. We'll work on fixing this together in the next 2 videos, going through each issue step by step. By the end, we'll have a beautiful, error-free website that you can be really proud of. And that's it for today's introduction to testing. You've learned how to test your website, making sure it looks great and works well. In our next videos, we'll work on fixing these issues. Great job today, and I can't wait to see you in the next video. Welcome back. I'm so happy you're here with me today because we've got some cool things to fix on our portfolio website. These are small changes, but trust me, they'll make a huge difference in how professional your website looks. The next 2 videos will be short. Today you won't spend too much time working on the project. And it's good because I don't want to overwhelm you after learning JavaScript. You deserve some easier learning days, right? So now we're going to fix 2 key issues. It is centering the logo in the header, and we've done something similar before, so it's a nice little refresher for you. We'll also fix the project cards overlapping with the header. For this one, we learn about a new concept, z-index. Don't worry, I'll explain everything so you can easily follow along. Ready? Let's get started. Okay, let's start with something you already know, centering the logo in the header. As you can see, the logo isn't perfectly centered vertically. And we definitely want it to be nice and centered because the header is one of the first things people see. Do you see some empty space below the logo? And remember, we had a similar issue with the hero image. Try to remember what we did back then and see if you can fix the problem with the logo on your own. And here's your task. Pause the video and try to fix it. Great, let's go over the solution. First, let me remind you why that extra space below the logo exists. By default, images are treated as inline elements, just like text. This means they leave a little space below for descenders, the parts of letters like Y and J that go below the baseline. The fix is super simple. All we need to do is change the image's display to block so it behaves like a block level element, and that extra space will disappear. Now, isn't that much better? The logo is now centered, and the header looks really good. Now let's move on to the second issue, the project cards overlapping with the header as you scroll down the page. This time, we will fix it together. To solve this issue, we will use a CSS property called z-index. So, what's happening here? When we scroll down the page, the header, which is sticky and stays at the top, seems to go underneath the project cards. And this is not what we want, right? The header should stay on top of everything else, no matter how far you scroll. Let me show you what's happening behind the scenes. Every element on your page in CSS exists within a stacking context. You can think of it like a stack of papers on a desk. Elements with a higher z-index value are placed on top of those with lower values, like a paper at the top of the stack. A paper with z-index 10 is placed on top of a paper with z-index 1. If two elements have the same z-index or no z-index at all, the browser stacks them based on their order in HTML. Elements that appear later in HTML will be placed on top of elements that come earlier. Now here's where things get interesting. You may have noticed that not all elements overlap the header, just the project cards and social media icons. Why is that? You must know that if any element is positioned, it means it has position property set to relative, absolute, or sticky. It creates its own new stacking context. In this situation, this element is out of the normal flow and appears above other elements. In our code, elements with their stacking context are the header, project cards, and social media icons. All of them jump above other elements. They all have no z-index, so the browser stacks them based on their order in HTML. Project cards and social media icons appear later, so that's why they're covering the header. Elements order on the website can be tricky. It's a bit complicated topic. If you want to learn more about it, check the link I provided below this video. The good news is that we can fix this easily by giving the header a higher z-index value. We can set it to 100, making sure that the header always stays on top of the project cards, icons, and anything else, no matter how far you scroll. Let's talk a little more about how z-index values work. We can use positive values. The higher the number, the more in front the element will be. So an element with a z-index of 100 will appear in front of an element with a z-index of 1, 15, or 68. We can use 0. If you don't assign a z-index, the default is 0, which means the element will follow the natural stacking order based on the HTML. We can also use negative values. If you give an element a negative z-index, like z-index -1, it will go behind other elements. One important thing to remember is that z-index only works on positioned elements, like elements with position relative, absolute, fixed, or sticky. Alright, let's quickly sum up why this fix works. By adding a z-index property set to 100 to the header, we gave it a higher stacking order than the project cards and social media icons. This makes sure the header stays on top. The project cards and icons were overlapping the header because they had position relative, which created their own stacking order. Now the browser knows the header needs to stay in front, so it will always be visible as you scroll. And that's it. You've learned how to use z-index to control which elements appear on top of others. This small change makes a big difference in making your website look nice and professional. Feel free to experiment with z-index in other parts of your project and see how it affects different elements. Great job today, and I'll see you in the next video. Welcome back! In the last video, we fixed two key issues. We centered the logo in the header and made sure the project cards didn't overlap the header anymore when we scrolled. Today, we'll fix the remaining three. The changes today are easy to follow. Are you ready? Let's get started. The first issue we're fixing today is the resizable text field in the contact form. If you've tried resizing the message box, you'll notice it can become too big or too small, messing up the form's layout. We want to keep the form looking clean and prevent users from resizing that text box. To do that, we'll use a CSS property called resize. The resize property allows you to control whether or not the user can resize an element. By default, text areas can be resized by dragging the bottom right corner, but we can control this. Here's how it works. Resize none means the element cannot be resized. Resize both allows resizing both vertically and horizontally. Resize vertical or resize horizontal allow resizing only in one direction. Now let's apply this to the contact form. And that's it. We've turned off the resizing functionality by adding resize none. Now, no matter how long the message is, the text box will stay the same size. Next, let's change the Contact Me link in the Hero section to a button. It's an anchor tag right now, but since it's a call to action that tells users to take some action, it should be a button instead. All we need to do is to change the tag. We also need to remove the href attribute. And we should add the button type. Now let's check the effect. The button right now is a bit different than the other on the page, right? Why is that? It's because the button element has some default styles, right? Also, the font is not right here. We need to make sure this button looks exactly like the rest of the call to action elements. Let's go to the style.css file. We'll write the styles in the Hero section. To make sure we change only this one element, we need to write the Hero class before the call to action class, right? Okay, the first thing we need to improve is to remove the default border. Also, we need to add the cursor property set to the pointer. The button looks better, but the text is still wrong. Let's check what we have in the Computed tab. As a font family, there's Arial, and as a font size, there are 13.3 pixels. It's not what we use in the project. There are some default button styles. So we'll add a font size property set to 1 rem, which equals 16 pixels, our default font size. And we'll add a font family property with the same value as the body element. Finally, we need to change the text color to white. Now, the button looks exactly like the rest. Let's check if it works. Yes, the modal appears. Everything works great now. Now the Contact Me button looks the same as before, but it's now more accessible for all users, and it makes more sense as a button that triggers an action. Finally, let's add the cursor property to the submit input in the contact form. And that's it. We need to change it only in one place in the code. And it's fixed in both contact forms, in the contact section and the modal. Today, we fixed the last 3 issues. We learned how to use the resize property to stop users from resizing the text area in the contact form. We changed the contact me link to a button, which is better for accessibility. We also added the cursor property to submit input to make sure the user knows it's a clickable element. These are small adjustments, but they make a difference. Great job today, and I'll see you tomorrow. We'll work on improving the website's performance. See you soon!